Hi everyone, this is Astera. I hope that you are all having a lovely day. Today I'm back to my expat series and I want to tell you a bit more about the experience of cross-cultural transition from the perspective of an expat spouse. When we think about expats and their cross-cultural transition and then their adaptation to the new social and cultural environment, we pretty often assume that this experience is similar for every member of the expat's family. Today, I don't want to talk about expat children, but I want to particularly focus on expat spouses. For expat spouses, the transition to a different place with their spouse, who is the actual expat, is quite difficult for many reasons. Today I wanted to focus on one reason, that is career and career progression or career continuation in the destination country. And just to mention, the majority of expat spouses are women. And that's not that surprising because it's still much easier for a man to find a well-paid job abroad in a completely different place in the world, a job that is developmental for their career and that justifies relocating to a different part of the world and taking their family with them for the duration of their contract. So that's why more than 75% of expat spouses nowadays are still women. But nevertheless, regardless of whether you are a man or a woman, being an expat spouse means that your cross-cultural transition will be a bit different than the cross-cultural transition of your husband or wife who are the actual expat. And one reason is the career. Those who are the actual expats, they have a job arranged for them, or they arrange a job for themselves prior to the relocation to the new country. If they are sent overseas by their company in the country of origin, there is quite likely that they would be provided with a cross-cultural training prior to the relocation, and that already pretty much facilitates their adaptation to the new culture. And once they leave their employment in their home country, they smoothly transition to the new employment in the destination country. So for the actual expats, this transition is not that difficult. Of course, there is a new work culture that they need to adjust to. Everything might be done differently. There is a new national culture that they have to adapt to as well. But they still have quite a lot of support that they most likely had received even prior to the relocation. And once they are in the new place, in the new job, they have people around. They have their colleagues who are expats like themselves, but more experienced in this particular environment, or they can be local colleagues who are experts on how the things work in the new country. So for the actual expat, the process of cross-cultural relocation can be, of course, daunting, will require lots of energy and time to adjust, but they have some support. For an expat spouse, this works a bit differently. Hardly ever an expat spouse has anything arranged career-wise in the destination country. They pretty often only accompany their expat husband or expat wife, and they need to start their careers pretty much from scratch in the destination country if they wish to. And being a successful employee or entrepreneur, for many of us, is a very important part of our identity. That defines us, that defines who we are. Apart from our other identities like being a husband or a wife. But the career part is very important for people, and that also makes you feel that you are useful for society, that you can provide other people with your expertise, and that's a very important part of one's identity. For expat spouses, when they relocate, they lose this part of their identity. While in the country of origin, they had their own jobs and they also had their financial resources, like their salary, coming on a regular basis to their account, which means that they were financially independent from their spouses. And once they move abroad with their spouse, who is the actual expat, this is pretty much gone. That also means that they don't have any career anymore, but that also means that they have to adjust to the situation in which they are completely financially dependent on their spouse, who is the actual expat. And that can be also daunting for someone who has been independent for the majority of their life. Being vulnerable and dependent financially on your spouse in a completely new and unfamiliar country may not be a very pleasant experience. So that's why for expat spouses it's more difficult to adjust to the new reality in the new country, in the destination country. They can also always try to rebuild their career and to enter the local labor market. However, there are lots of limitations to do so. One of the limitations can be that the foreign labor market might not be that inclusive of workers from another country. That might be due to regulations about professions that need to be recognized. In some countries, some professions are regulated, so that can be a barrier. Another barrier can be the local language. If you don't speak the local language, it might be much harder for you to find a job if you are an expat spouse. And there might be also lots of different biases, like social, religious biases, that can prevent foreign workers, especially women, from entering the labor market. Sometimes it may also be related to the visa limitations. Expat spouses sometimes are granted this kind of visas that do not allow them to work in the destination country. So that all makes the whole process of cross-cultural adaptation for an expat wife or expat husband much more difficult than for the actual expat. And we need to remember that for the expat family, the cross-cultural relocation is already a very demanding experience, and it changes the whole life. But for some members of expat families, this experience can be even more challenging and require more resilience and more resourcefulness. I hope that now you understand why being an expat spouse may be more difficult during the cross-cultural transition than being the actual expat. Take care, stay safe, thank you for watching, and see you soon. Bye.